perfect place to begin our discussion with the guys from the Marine Layer podcast making their debut on Washington Sports Wrap tonight alongside TJ Mathewson and Lyle Goldstein. I'm Aaron Levine. There's no question this has been a maddening offseason, guys. So the million-dollar question is, how can fans out there balance that frustration, try to make their point to ownership, but still show support for these players who clearly have nothing to do with any of that and deserve our support?
I've been battling with this question all offseason. It's really a tough line to draw. But the conclusion I think I've come to is that fans, they can do what they want. I mean, it's their money, right? It's their money that they can go choose to spend the team on. And ultimately, this is a game of entertainment and something that you go to get away from your everyday life of work and stress and whatever else could complicate whatever you go through on a day-to-day basis. So if you still feel the need to go out there and buy tickets and support the team because that's what you want to do, even if you're pissed about what's happened this offseason. And you should be. I think there's every reason in the world that you should be angry at that. But ultimately, it's up to you. It's up to the person to decide that.
Lyle?
Yeah, I think that's about right. Fans can fan however they want to.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of being a fan. And look, everybody should be frustrated. I get if you're frustrated. We've talked about it all winter. It's warranted for every single reason that's been outlined. That being said, players still deserve your support. Players still deserve that fans coming out to the park and supporting them. And I try to remember that, as frustrating as it can be from time to time, or maybe all the time throughout the offseason, fans still should go out and support the players because the players deserve the support. And with that, it's just motivation for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned the pitching staff. I mean, give our viewers a realistic timeline of how long we might be able to see, at least 4 of these 5 guys in the starting rotation, especially without having to sign them to big money contracts going forward.
I can guarantee confidently 1 more year.
Okay.
Confidently.
This year or 1 year
this upcoming season.
Yep.
1,000% yes, all 4 of them will be together. The interesting case is Logan Gilbert. I think it all comes back to him, right? Because we're talking about keeping the 4 youngest guys together, as you mentioned in the open, like making less than $14 million. Gilbert's going to get the most expensive quickly. Therefore, he's the most likely to get traded. The ultimate question is, does he want to sign an extension here? I feel like he'd gotten one done by now if that was the case, right? Because that's what the Mariners want. If his price keeps going up, they can't afford him based on what they've said they're willing to pay for players. He's a $30 million pitcher right now, at least.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, the other side of this, too, is come January 1st of next year, that's when Luis Castillo's no-trade clause goes away. And we know the Mariners were talking to other teams about Castillo this offseason. So how long does he still have in Seattle? It could be the rest of that contract. It could also just be 1 more year. So I think somewhere in the 1 to 3 year range is about the right middle point for how long these guys could be together. Because they could ride this rotation through the time that they're free agents. But that being said, they could also choose to trade some of them away, bring some prospects back if they deem that they're not going to sign these guys long term.
Yeah, that window of opportunity just feels like it's closing and closing, and one reason for the frustration this past offseason. It also begs the question, without the big name free agent signings, how much pressure is there this season specifically on Julio Rodriguez to perform? I mean, you provided stats on your podcast about how much he single-handedly impacts wins and losses on this team. What are the realistic expectations for Julio this year, given that he probably didn't live up to those expectations last year?
This year 4, I think the expectation should be as high as possible. He understands at this point, look what happened the last 2 years. I was the most inconsistent I've ever been in my career. And because of that, it caused my team in good part to miss the playoffs. Outside of everything else that went wrong, all the Tommy LaStellas, the A.J. Pollocks, the Mitch Garver bad year last year, all that stuff that happened. If Julio just plays like he did as a rookie, I think it's all irrelevant. It's all totally irrelevant. So Julio has to feel the pressure on himself because the organization has made it known with their checkbook that this is the guy we're sinking our dollars into. We're not going to spend on anybody else. We'll spend on you, though, and because of that, that means it's up to you to go out and have a great season this year.
Yeah, and with that, we talked about it on our show that when Julio thrives, the team wins. His OPS is close to 900, and when he doesn't, they don't. Yeah. The offense stops and starts through Julio Rodriguez. It's just the simple fact. Now, it would have been great if they had signed a couple additional impact bats to give him some help, but how much pressure is on Julio this year? There's going to be a decent bit because that's the way the offense is set up. For this team to thrive offensively, he has to go.
Are we going to get any indication in spring training how Julio is, or is it just a matter of waiting until the regular season?
I'd love to know. I would love Julio to go out there and just tear the cover off the ball this spring training, but in reality, the first 3 weeks, the first 4 weeks of the season, I think, are that telling point, because April's have haunted him.
Absolutely. Well, and at the end of the day, a lot is riding on Julio. I mean, he is your guy for at least the next 5 seasons, and then you have that team option as well. The franchise face, you're hoping to get that elevated to superstar status when it comes to Julio Rodriguez this year. Up next, we're taking a closer look at spring training, the biggest storylines to keep an eye on, and the players who could emerge as the biggest impact players this season. We're going to discuss that. Plus,
he's like, I don't know what happened to you, because there was a point where I thought you were just the most boring person alive. And he said a few years ago, I just got funny out of nowhere.
yeah, Alex Roldan admitted his brother is the funniest guy on the Sounders. Coming up later, we're going to put the comedian and veteran in midfielder, Christian Roldan, in the spotlight. That's coming up here on Washington Sports Wrap. And a reminder that Fox 13 is your home of the Seattle Seawolves rugby team, which opens regular season play this Sunday against the San Diego Legion. That game can be seen on Fox 13 Plus at 2 o'clock. All 16 Seawolves games will appear on the Fox 13 family of channels, including the home opener on March 8th on Fox 13. Remember, the Seawolves are coming off another successful year, winning the Western Conference Championship and falling just short of their 3rd title in Major League Rugby history. So maybe this is the year, and you will see them on Fox 13 Plus starting this Sunday afternoon. So we welcome you back to Washington Sports Wrap. We've got the guys from the Marine Layer podcast talking everything Mariners. Check them out wherever you download podcasts and on X at Marine Layer Pod. We're all headed out to Mariners spring training the next couple of weeks. I'll be there next week. So for each of you, starting with you, Lyle, aside from Julio, aside from starting pitching, what is the top storyline for you heading into spring training?
I think it's all about some guys that could bounce back. And I think when you think about guys that could bounce back, you look at the 2 former Twins, and Jorge Polanco and Mitch Garver. This team has not given themselves a lot of margin for error. That's how the offseason's gone. But with that, if Polanco and Garver hit like the guys they were expected to be when they were brought in last year, the lineup's really lengthened. If Mitch Garver gets back to being a middle-of-the-order bat and a real threat, same with Polanco, then all of a sudden this offense could really be an above-average offense, and an offense that could really support this pitching staff in a way that they could really, really use some help on the other side of it.
A healthy Polanco, very nice going into this season. TJ?
It's got to be the bullpen.
Yeah.
The bullpen, I think, was almost a bigger reason the Mariners weren't successful last season as the offense. Offense, as we know, wasn't really good enough, but neither was the bullpen. The amount of leads they blew down the stretch last year when you knew Matt Brash was out for the season, you were hoping Gregory Santos would come back, and he just couldn't stay healthy in the Mariners bullpen. And you found that you didn't have those leverage guys to lean on. And now we go into spring training this year. Brash, we've gotten some mixed timelines from the Mariners organization on when he's going to be back,
right,
which isn't a good start. And then you have Santos, who they say is healthy, but I kind of need to see it first, pitching in games before you actually get to that point. And then you have the bounce back candidates. Saucedo had a good year last year. You want to see that continue. Gabe Spire had a tough year last year, but he was so good in 23. There's just a whole number of guys that have the opportunity to grab a spotlight here in spring training and shore up what I think was a weakness last year for this team.
So, Lyle, who's your breakout star coming out of this camp? Who are we going to be really excited about coming out of camp and starting the regular season?
If he's healthy, I think it should be Gregory Santos, like TJ just mentioned. He was brought in last year to create this 3-headed monster with Munoz, with Brash, and form what had the chance to be one of the best bullpens in all of baseball. We just didn't get to see it last year because Brash missed all year. Santos only threw a handful of innings. But if he can get into that role and stay healthy and pitch the way that they thought he was going to pitch when they acquired him from Chicago, that's a huge, huge boost for the Mariners bullpen for a guy that has electric stuff on the back end.
You agree?
Yes. So yes, I agree with that one. But I think the thing that would actually make fans the most excited is if Cole Young goes out there and, I wouldn't say dominates, but let's say he puts up like a Jared Kelenic 2021 level spring where he came out and he played really, really well, and everyone's like, put him on the team, put him on the team, put him on the team.
Yeah.
They didn't end up putting on the team. I don't think they should put Cole Young on the team at the start of the season anyway, because he's still probably got a little bit to go. But just to build some excitement. People want something to be excited about. Getting a young everyday third baseman is something to be really excited about, and there's a reason he's a top prospect in baseball.
So I love the excitement there. And then for all the pessimism and resentment there is around the fan base, at this point in time, how do you guys see this season playing out? Are they going to win the division? Are they going to make the playoffs? What's your take right now?
You know, the pendulum swings so far both ways for how it could go this year. I think all these projections that have them in the mid-80s win totals is about right, especially when you just consider where you expect them to be for the start of the year. But there's a world that if this offense really figures it out and clicks, if the bullpen bounces back from a year ago, yeah, they can get into the playoffs. They can win 88 to 90 games. This is a roster that has the capability of doing that. So yeah, if you want to look on the optimistic side, they can absolutely overplay where the expectations are preseason and be the team that they were in 2022, which found themselves in October.
TJ, I'm going to get your answer coming up later in the show. We're going to tease that really deep because it's going to the last segment of the show. Hang around. We're going to figure out which one of you guys is really good at trivia also, and you guys decide who's going to play at the end. But up next, we're catching up with Sounders midfielder Christian Roldan, fresh off the team's training in Spain. His thoughts with the regular season right around the corner. That's next here on Washington Sports Wrap. Up next, we are hazing the rookies. Trivia time for either TJ or Lyle from the Marine Layer podcast. Who's it going to be? We're going to find out. It's coming up next. Wrapping things up with the guys from the Marine Layer podcast, talking all things Mariners. And if you want to see a show in person, head out to Moss Bay Hall next Thursday night at 6 o'clock. You guys will be doing your first live show, right?
Looking forward to it. Yeah, it's going to be really exciting.
Well, it is now time for On the Clock. Which one of you is going to be in the hot seat tonight? Which one of you is it going to be? TJ is going to be the first contestant. Here's the deal. You have 90 seconds to answer as many questions as possible. If you don't know the answer right away, say pass so we can get to as many questions as possible. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, we're going to put 90 seconds on the clock. Your time starts now. What jersey number does Luke Raley wear for the Mariners?
Pass.
What is the capital of Oregon?
Salem.
Who was the Mariners manager right before Scott's service?
Lloyd McClendon.
What do you call a sheet of cool, moist air over water that can cause fog or low clouds?
The Marine Layer.
Oh, there you go. Good job. What star player did the Seattle Storm recently trade to the Las Vegas Aces?
Jewel Lloyd.
Who wrote the Hunger Games novels?
Pass.
Aside from Shohei Ohtani, what pitcher has the highest salary for this upcoming season?
Pass.
How many dice do you roll in a game of Yahtzee?
4.
What Seahawks player had a 92-yard interception return for a touchdown this year?
Kobe Bryant.
In what country would you find the Blue Grotto?
Pass.
Who was World Series MVP last year?
Corey Seager.
How many wives did Henry VIII have?
8.
Bobby Hurley is ASU's basketball coach. What is his brother's name that coaches UConn?
Danny.
What college did Mariners manager Dan Wilson attend?
Minnesota.
Who won the Grammy for Best Pop Vocal Album with Short and Sweet?
Sabrina Carpenter.
What is the name of Sounders head coach?
Pass.
How many slots are there on an American roulette wheel?
Pass.
Okay, time is up. That is 38. Brian Schmetzer is the name of the Sounders head coach. Henry VIII had 6 wives. Freddie Freeman, the World Series MVP for the Dodgers last year. How quickly we all forget. It's amazing. Italy is where you'd find the Blue Grotto. Leonard Williams had a 92-yard interception return for a touchdown this year for the Seahawks. 5 dice in a game of Yahtzee. Zach Wheeler, the highest paid pitcher aside from Ohtani this year. Suzanne Collins, the Hunger Game novels. And 20 is the number for Luke Raley. Mariners going to make the playoffs this year? 3 seconds.
No.
Yes, no. No? Okay. On that note, bye.